What's up, guys? Wanted to talk today about big glove fighting versus fighting with little gloves. I'm sure, there's quite a few people have videos out about this and stuff, but I figured I'd give my opinion and insight on it. I feel like they're like completely two different sports almost, to be honest with you guys. I feel like a lot of stuff that you learn, let's say from a boxing coach that's only fought with big gloves, that will get you messed up in an MMA fight to a degree, like big time. That everything has to be changed. That you can't keep your hands up the same. You can't block the same. You can't. Everything has to be changed with little gloves. The smaller the gloves get, the better you have to. I will say this: I feel like you have to be able to read range better. I think you have to. Reading range is the best defense there is for sure. But with MMA gloves, you can't just stand there and shell up and try to block everything with your arms. Stuff will eventually get through and you're going to be in trouble. So, I mean, defense is way different with big gloves versus little gloves. A lot of punches get through. A lot of techniques that will work in little gloves might not work with big gloves as well. A lot of I throw a lot of karate blitzes, and you see a lot of guys. Karate blitzes do work with big gloves, but they don't work anywhere near as good. They work better with smaller gloves. You see a lot of guys in karate combat now, blitzing because they're karate guys, and they're very hard to hit. I fought there twice now, and they're not easy to hit. They know how to read range well. They're really prepared for like a little glove fighting style, where that's why I think if some of them came to MMA, they would do good in striking with the striking aspect for sure, because they're not easy to hit. They know how to read range very well. Whereas like a kickboxer, lots of times may be meaner. They may be tougher. They may be, they're trained to stand there and take some and shell up and fight back. Maybe a Muay Thai or Dutch style kickboxing, but it's just different with little gloves. You don't see guys fighting like that with little gloves for a reason. Even I think probably the best example you'll see of that would be Alistair Overeem. Overeem with big gloves was damn near unbeatable when he was when he won the K1 title. He would walk people down. He would shell up. He has big shoulders, big biceps, and he would just block everything with his gloves. And then when he fought in MMA, he would fight with his hands down. He would never fight with his hands down with big gloves. He didn't need to. MMA, I'm sure part of that was because of he wanted to make sure he didn't get put on bottom. He wanted to be able to get double underhooks and stop the takedowns. But as a whole, he would walk people down with big gloves. He would just walk them down behind heavy hands and swinging. And more in MMA, he tended to be a mover more. He was more of a counter puncher in MMA than he was a pressure fighter. You just kind of you have to adapt your game for whatever style you're doing. So that's something important to think about, guys. When you're fighting, if you go from fighting, like I put my guys in a lot of smoker kickboxing fights and kickboxing tournaments and boxing tournaments, and I make them do a decent amount before we transition to MMA, and it's so different. Everything changes, and also the best fighter. First of all, the best fighter in fighting doesn't always win. Like oftentimes you can have two people fight 10 times if you could, like hypothetically, of course. But if they fought 10 times, the dude who won the first fight might not win again. It's just but even more so with little gloves. And little gloves, I mean, you can land one shot and it's over. And you can land it with big gloves too, but it's way harder. It's way harder. So you have to be really, really more defensive minded as an MMA fighter, I think, than even fighting with bigger gloves. Because shit's going to get through, guys. People are going to throw lucky punches and they're going to land. And maybe they're not lucky. Maybe they're going to land with big gloves. We don't know. But, I mean, you've seen guys, like Roy Nelson was a good example of that. Some of those fights, he would just, basically get his butt whipped and then he would land that big shot and it was over. That's the benefit of fighting in little gloves. It only takes one. So I would say, the best fighter doesn't always win, but even more so in MMA. I would say probably at least 90% of the time in boxing with bigger gloves, the better fighter does win. Little gloves changes everything. So something to think about. Also would say that when you're grappling, you should be practicing with MMA gloves as well. I think if you're grappling and you're training for an MMA fight, I definitely think you should be punching while you're doing it, and you should be training for you should be training with your gloves, with your MMA gloves on if you're doing grappling as well. But just wanted to give my opinion. If you're new to martial arts and you're starting your martial arts journey, get my book, The Ultimate Guide to Choosing a Martial Arts School and Instructor. The link is in the description below, and it gives you a good path to start your martial arts journey. Let me know any topics y'all like me to go over. Thank you guys.